So Fiona, you were a media executive for quite some time before making the move to freelancing, to being self-employed, sorry. Could you talk us through what your career trajectory has looked like before moving into being self-employed?
Of course. I started as a 17-year-old copy person in a newspaper 30 years ago. Now, the primary job of a copy person was to go and get the sub-editors their dim sims for dinner, go and pick up the photos off the bus when they arrived from other offices, to go and put together the shipping news, make sure that the crossword clues matched the grid, those sorts of things. And once you've been competent at doing those things, you move into a cadetship. And then I worked my way through the cadetship with the newspaper, doing everything from sport to politics, before going into broadcast. And in the years that followed, I moved between broadcast and newspapers a number of times, ended up back at the newspaper as editor of the same newspaper. It's quite a number of the people were still there. And then back again to broadcast, back to the ABC. And really at that point, I'd moved into management as opposed to hands-on journalism. But I think once you've been a journalist, you always consider yourself a journalist. And my last position was as director of the ABC's regional division, which we built. So I was responsible for all of our regional offices, 48 of them, and the people there across the country, whilst I remained living in Launceston in Tasmania. So I had an absolutely wonderful, wonderful job, and I've been very fortunate that I've been able to move around the country and also around lots of different parts of media operations.
You worked for this period of time as a director, and then you decided to make a move to become self-employed yourself. What did that transition look like for you?
Best way of describing that is I stumbled my way through it. I honestly have not been somebody who has had a 5-year plan. I've got a lot of friends who do, and I think more power to them, and that's fantastic. My whole belief has been just keep adding skills and do things that I'm really interested in, and hopefully increase my value that way and keep my passion alive. And I've been really lucky that I feel like I've had multiple careers within one industry, within one career essentially. I decided that after 8 years, this was a very personal decision because I really did have the best job I've ever had working with our regional teams in the ABC. They are just gold. But from my personal point of view, I had been travelling almost every week for 8 years, and I had 2 young daughters here in Tasmania, and they reached an age sort of around that teen transition that I just wanted to not miss out. I always said my husband changed more nappies than I ever did, but I wanted to be there for that period. So I had started a PhD in journalism, media and communications many years before. I had had great difficulty completing it. I would 1 hour in a hotel room here and an hour on a plane there, just wasn't cutting it. So when I decided to stop traveling, I decided that's the thing I'd better finish. And I really, I thought, this is great. This is a new chapter, in my life. And I was in the garden just after I had stopped traveling, and suddenly felt a loss of purpose, a real loss of what is my purpose here. And it's put me into what I'd describe as a bit of a funk for about 24 hours, where I was like, oh, what am I doing? I've just given up this fantastic job. And my husband said, just finish the PhD. So I went, right, that's my sense of purpose. So bang, head down, read what I'd previously written, which was about 40,000 words, thought it was total garbage, threw it out, said to myself, that's why you can't write something with your head in too many spaces at the one time. And I started again, and I pushed through that basically redid the PhD in 18 months. So I finished that at the end of 2019 and graduated last year. And then again, and you know, I'm at home, I'd finished the PhD, I'm in the garden, and I went, what do I do now? You know, no plan. That's why I say no 5-year plan. It was just, what am I going to do now? I've lost my sense of purpose again. And I went, okay, what have I got? You know, and I think every now and then we need to stop and say, what are my skills? You know, don't think of them about what's the job I'm doing or, you know, what role do I want? But just strip yourself right back and go, what are the skills that I have got? And what floats my boat? What is going to make me feel really engaged? And I thought I need to go back to content making. I really feel a sense that that's what I want to do. And I have these interviews with these people who are the subjects of my study from years before. And I have the audio recordings of that. So maybe I could do something that I've never done before. What's the thing I've never done? I've never done a podcast. I could learn how to do a podcast naively. And went, okay, and I don't know podcasts in the commercial sector. I don't know what that looks like, how they operate. So I went right back to basics of, I want to pick up a new skill set. I want to bring with me the skills that I do have. I have not been a broadcast practicing journalist, you know, in the radio space for 10 years. So let's start brushing off those skills, using the material I've got and creating something. And that's what I did. And it gave me a sense of purpose. And for the last sort of 6 to 7 months or so, I've had my head down, my backside up again.
So you chose podcasting as a passion, but why this particular podcast, Accidental Celebrity? What made you choose this particular topic?
Well, it was because it was my study material. I had it, so it felt like a natural progression. So I guess once I'd finished doing the academic study, a lot of people, I had written a manuscript as a part of the thesis, and a lot of people said to me, oh, you know, am I going to be able to read the book? And once I'd finished doing that project, to be honest, I didn't feel like going back and rewriting it into a popular book. I felt like I'd put that to one side, and I really did feel like I wanted to use some other skills and bring it to life in another way. I also fundamentally believe that audio has a massive power, and as do pictures. A massive power when you listen to somebody's voice and how they're saying it, as opposed to how I might be editing it. So the thesis manuscript was called Accidental Celebrity, and accidental celebrity is a term that was coined 20 years ago by 3 leading Australian academics, Graham Turner, Francis Bonner and David Marshall. And the concept of the premise of my study was that, which is that there are high profile news events that capture the public's attention to the extent that the people at the centre of it become celebrities as a result. And a celebrity is somebody who gains more interest in their personal life than their professional life. I chose as a part of the study to do trauma survivors, to focus on that one particular thread of accidental celebrity. And so I had interviewed Lindy Chamberlain-Creighton, Stuart Diver from Thredbo, James Scott, who survived in the Himalayas, Todd Russell from the Beaconsfield rockfall, and Bruce and Denise Morecambe, whose son Daniel had been murdered. And they were among the participants in my study who I interviewed, and they gave me all of their insights into the media. So the question that I was answering was, how much do they have control, do they have over how their story is told? And what is that like to transition from being a private citizen to a public figure? So those are the people that, once I'd finished the study, I asked them, would they be interested in me coming back to them with a proposal for a podcast series? And they said, sure. So I went back with a full pitch on what that would look like, and they kept their faith with me. And then I approached Rosie Batty, whose son Luke was murdered by his father in 2014, because her story was not one that I had incorporated into the study, but I really had always felt that she should have been there, and that she had a different story to tell because she'd become a champion of change against family violence. And so, yeah, that's why I decided to take what I already had. And I think most of us could look around and say, you know, there's an area of interest. What could I do with that? How do I shape that into a story? It just needs a really strong thread.
You've obviously taken this idea from the thesis, and then coming up with the idea, pitching it is one thing, but then executing is another completely different thing. So I guess, what did that process look like in actually making the podcast, and did you experience any barriers?
I didn't know where to start. That was the first barrier. Because I was moving outside mainstream media organisations like that I had worked in, I didn't know how to knock on somebody's door. I had never been on that side of it. I had always been employed for 30 years to deliver. And now I was going, how do I pitch this to somebody in such a way as they're going to want to run it or take it? And how do I even find an audio editor? Because what I know is the level of production that I wanted was beyond my skill set. I could write it. I know what the story is. But my editing skills, you know, they're 10 years old, and they were pretty basic when they were around 10 years. That was radio current affairs, you know, radio news. It wasn't like the level of production that I wanted. So again, I went back to some of the things that I had told other people when I was an executive. You know, understand what you know and where your skills are, but also recognize what you don't know, because nobody knows it all. And you have to surround you. I used to say to our leadership team, surround yourself with people who do know, because I don't have all the answers. Wisdom does not reside in one person, but within the leadership team that I worked with, we had people who are experts in all of the different, you know, areas and fields that we needed. So I went, okay, I know I can write it. I know I can voice it. I have to brush off the vocal cords again. What I don't have is I need an editor, and I need, you know, ins to distributors and things like that. So I feel so very grateful to a bunch of people who have said, what can I do to help you?
How do you go about creating opportunity for yourself, especially because people who are self-employed, you are alone and you have to fight, I guess, or find things for yourself?
Well, I'll get back to you after I see whether the podcast series was successful. No, mate. Look, it depends on what you want out of it. I am thrilled to be back in content making, but equally, I can see, for myself, I can see opportunity in potentially, you know, creating my own business, and that's what I will have a look at now. I can see huge potential for a lot of different, you know, stories and pitches. I think and I think that's because I kind of leapt off a ledge and said, I'll have a crack and I'll see where this leads. But definitely to go back, I suppose, to a few things that we've already touched on, I feel that you need to make a lot of contacts of people that you can ask questions of, who can help fill in the gaps for you, to build relationships with people. And it's not, and don't ever approach that as, I need to build a lot of relationships and be a networker for what I can get out of it. Always look at it from the point of view of, okay, but what can I also give to somebody else? So that means, you know, if I am now actively going to keep widening my network of people that I know, contacts, and then be also asking the question, okay, so how could I help you? So if I need research help, I'll know who to go to do research for me. You know, other types of skill sets that I might need. I really want to, in the future, be thinking about it in terms of partnerships. So it goes beyond, because I kind of have always felt like, and a lot of people do, the word networking makes it sound like it's very much, what can I get out of you? So I tend to use the phrase, and it's not a dirty word to me, it is to a lot of people, but I tend to prefer the word partner. You know, how do I partner with other people? So that means it's very much a two-way street, and I'm going to broaden that. As a freelancer for opening up opportunities, I really think that that's the best way. And it's surprising to me the number of highly successful, what I'd say highly successful, because, you know, I know they're incredibly competent and great at always deliver, you know, really skilled. It's absolutely not about what pay grade you've ever been on. It's about being successful in what you're doing. I know a lot of people who have, particularly women, who should be holding their heads so high and going, yeah, I'm pretty damn good actually. And instead they're saying to me, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do next because I don't feel confident enough now. You know, I feel like I've had a bit of a setback in my career, or I've stopped for a bit and now I don't know how to start again. And I'm losing my confidence. And I go, right, write a list of all of the people that you know, that you have a relationship with, that you trust. Write a list of either the types of content that you want to create, or the organisations you'd be happy to work for. I mean, it's those sort of things, picking and being very broad about it. And then I said, and then you just hit the phone. That's how, honestly, it's the building of a relationship is how you get your foot in the door, and it's how people know you. And I can honestly say, you know, I'm about to test that big time hopefully in the freelance space, because beyond this, I will want to try and leverage and see what other opportunities I can create for myself. So I'll get back to you and tell you whether I successful, failed miserably. But I'm going to have a go, and I'm going to have to go, you know, Fiona, take a deep breath, have some confidence, and ring some people that you haven't talked to for a while and say, remember me, you know, can I talk with you about this, this, and this, and have the guts to do it. Because I had the guts when I was working for somebody. I had the guts to do it. It's harder when you're on your own, I think, because you start to lose the confidence because you feel so on your own sometimes. When I was looking for my first ever job, the way I got that job as a copy person was I went on work experience in grade 10, and every month after that, I called in to the newsroom and said, hi, remember me? Now, by the time I was 17, so I'd be 15, by the time I was 17 and I had a driver's license, they said to me, we've got a copy person's position, lead to a cadetship. Do you have a driver's license? Because we feel we know everything else about you. That was my job interview. Yes, I've got a driver's license. I drive like rubbish, but I've got a driver's license. Likely to stack your car, but I've got a driver's license. And then I can tell you that 3 other jobs in my media career after that I got, all because I went up to somebody and said, hey, if you're looking for somebody to do a secondment, I'm up for it. Or if you need somebody to do a job for you, let me know, because I'm up for it. And each time it's been a few months, it's not straight away, but it's been a few months, and they've rung me and said, hey, Fiona, we need somebody for such and such. Hadn't thought of you until, like you said, wouldn't have thought of you except that you'd said that you were in the market or you were looking around. So you're interested in this, and that's led to one thing to another to another. So back yourself in and have the guts. And because if somebody says no to you, so what? Move on to the next one.
Yeah. I mean, that's the worst you can get, a no, right?
Yeah. And the other, the way of phrasing that is, in my own head, is kick a lot of doors. And I have kicked a lot of doors over the years, and some of them have absolutely never, a lot of them have never opened. I could give you a list, but probably won't, of the doors that stayed slammed shut in my face. And in hindsight now, I can go, "Oh, that was a good thing because I went on and did something else because I kicked a lot more doors, and the one that opened was the right one for me." And so with this, I describe launching off into being, self-employed freelancer, space. I describe that as kicking a door, and now I'm about to go and kick a lot more doors and see where that's going to lead me to. And something might open, but I won't stop kicking.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Fiona, for your time, and we wish you all the best with the podcast release.